we don't have any music today.
Oh, we
Jake is
don't.
on vacation, so
Blink.
ba-da-ba-ba-ba, Corridor.
Oh, that's beautiful,
Wren,
actually.
that's copyright.
That's oh dang it! This whole video is now stricken with the copies of rights. How you doing, everyone?
I want to open here by asking you guys if I look like the most chill beach dude of all time. I got a surf shirt, got some Crocs on.
You're selling us on it, but I'm going to go with a hard no. I think Fenner looks
hard
more
no?
beach right now.
Oh, man.
Oh, son.
Hard no. Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got gel in your hair.
That's what I was going
I
to
don't
say.
have
I was gonna
gel in my hair. I got
grease.
salt.
The natural
I got
grease.
salt water because Wren and I were at the beach.
We're at the beach this morning.
yeah.
Should we introduce who we are real quick for all of our audio listeners?
Yeah.
I'm Wren.
I'm Jordan.
I'm Fenner.
And I'm Dean.
So that's who we are.
Yay.
So the beach, am I right?
Yeah, let's talk about the beach, huh?
There's water.
And there's cool guys like Dean.
Well, and Fenner was at the beach. You said you were
I was
surfing
also-
this morning.
I was.
We almost,
what?
we
Yeah,
almost
I
caught
was like,
Fenner.
I must have been like a few blocks away from you guys.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait,
I was,
hold
just,
up,
I was
hold up.
just south of you guys.
You were at the beach this morning when we were?
Yeah, different beach though, but just south of you guys. Like,
Okay, yeah,
I
'cause
could have.
we were straight up at Santa Monica. Like, we were just south of the pier, Santa Monica Pier.
And for
Yeah.
context, we were getting a shot for this Caustics video that Ren
Yeah.
is working on. But I thought, how funny, because there's this shot, I'm holding a boom pole with a scuba mask on as Ren's coming out of the water. How funny it would have been if it was Fenner on a surfboard with the boom pole following you in. So you're running
God.
in.
I'm just running
and
through
he's-
the water.
And he's surfing with you.
But-
So, I mean, yeah, I feel like we can't say that without also giving context onto this video that we're doing. Sorry, what? Oh, yeah,
Oh,
I guess
it will be
it's
out.
out now. Hey, go check it out on CorridorDigital.com or on YouTube if that's where you're at. That'll tell you all you need to know, and hopefully it's done by then.
Yes, hopefully.
No promises.
As of right now, it's not done.
This video is a very, very unique one, even for me, because it's like, it's got all of the same sort of things I've done in a scale video before, but also none of them. It's a weird sort of paradox.
It's a hybrid. You're kind of going more off script on this one.
It's a little bit, yeah. So I've been struggling with writing in general in my life the last like half year. Started with the Solar World video. That kind of broke my life a little bit, but this Caustics video was my attempt to like, okay, come up with a new format that's essentially like that without the actual script. And so we kind of just like outlined it, kind of made all these different moments, made it like sort of a beat list. We even like wrote them out on flashcards and like reassembled them to kind of get the structure of the video put together, because this video is about something that is so like niche, so esoteric. Like not a single person I've started describing this video to understood what I meant when I said it's about caustics. So like, what? Even my parents, I spent like 10 minutes describing the Caustics video to them last night.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, last night. And it wasn't until I literally showed them a render of a crystal prism and like the dispersion on the ground that they're like, oh, that's what you meant. I was like, I literally already defined it and everything for you guys. So it's like, not that that's a bad thing. It's just, it reinforces that this is like such a randomly like specific thing.
It's something you just get used to seeing, isn't it? We see caustics all the time. We just don't think about them.
Exactly. That's
Unless
the
you're
line in the video.
Yeah, unless you're literally trying to render caustics.
The video
Yeah,
is
right?
you working on this is kind of broken my brain because now I'm seeing them everywhere. The other morning I woke up and through like the peephole on my door, it was casting like this rainbow circle on the wall. And I was like,
so
I
cool.
never noticed it until you'd started this video.
To reinforce again the point I'm making, I should probably also define caustics a little bit more clearly. It's like the patterns of light you get on the other side of glass or water. You know, like the little patterns you see at the bottom of pools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or if you just take like a prism or any sort of like jewelry, like the cool like little patterns of light you get passing through it. If you see light passing through a window and landing on your wall, there's probably some sort of pattern to it. It's probably a square pattern. That's technically a caustic. And rendering that is one of the hardest things because of how rendering works. It essentially just takes a very, very, very long time to render it. And part of what got me going on this video was a new Octane render kernel, a new type of rendering that they released. They announced it like last December, I think, but it just came out as a Cinema 4D plugin like in the last month. And it does caustic rendering 1,000 times faster than ever before. And so suddenly it's like the fact that we're able to do this so quickly now
Well,
it's just a little bit more achievable.
So quickly,
So
like,
quickly.
weren't some of your render times like insane? Like, and because you need crazy samples, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and that's exactly. It's like Caustics. No one ever really does Caustics because it just takes too long to render. We're talking like years,
like real
to render.
Caustics.
Real Caustics, yeah.
Yeah.
And so another chunk of this video is talking about fake Caustics. If you're to literally search how to render Caustics on YouTube right now, every single result on the top 50 are all going to be doing faked Caustics, usually with like some sort of gobo style thing, like blocking the light in an interesting pattern. Others will do it with like a photon mapping type thing. It's a biased type of rendering. It's not exactly spectrally correct. It's not real. They're all like kind of faked versions to accelerate that rendering like speed.
So now with the new rendering kernel, how long does it take to get a noise-free caustic?
So I've been doing these renders for the last 2 weeks now, and just I always have my home computer going and my work computer going at all times pretty much. And I've kicked out almost 24 renders. And on some scenes, it actually renders pretty quickly. What I've found is that you have to have very simple geometry for the caustics to be hitting. So all of the renders with like the wood that I had, with like the nice bump mapping and like the normal maps and the roughness maps, it's taken a long time to render that out to get it to be noiseless. How unbiased rendering works is that it starts super noisy, and as it samples each pixel longer and longer, that pixel becomes more and more accurate. And what we end up seeing is that the renders get less and less noisy. So anytime you see a render that's like noisy, they just didn't have enough time to render it.
Yeah.
We've been there a lot. And that's where like denoising comes in. You can denoise your renders, but the built-in denoising doesn't work on the new caustic stuff yet. I've not been able to use that. So in order to get it to render noiseless, you have to let it go longer. And on that one shot, it took 100 hours to render a 200 frame sequence.
That's crazy.
It's like 6.5 or 7 seconds.
And that's
is the
with
render.
the new photon tracer.
And that's with the new photon tracer. In fact, in the footage that I provided, I pull out my phone. I'm like, hey, Siri, how long is 100 hours, 100,000 hours? Because if it's 1,000 times faster, presumably it'd take 100,000 hours, right?
Oh, interesting. How long?
Presumably, but it's not exactly how it works. And that's like 11 years.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Wow.
But
For 7 seconds.
Like, so we've been working on this video. I was like, okay, I have to understand how rendering works at a level to understand how, like, why is caustics hard?
Yeah.
And you spoke with Jules, the head of Otoy, for the video, and he had a very nice explanation of the photon tracer and Octane. After like an entire day of like reading, like even to the point of reading like research papers and stuff, like, oh my God, how do I understand this? I understand it less now.
I feel like I can relate. I spent quite a bit of time researching this stuff, and then I'm like, all right, I feel like I'm getting a grasp on it. And then someone will ask me about it, and I'll be like,
yeah, like the light bounces off the wall.
Transport. It goes from the light and into the. Man, I guess I don't know anything about this. Dang it.
Because this is about to get super like esoteric, but like, is photon mapping ray tracing, or is it like?
Yeah, kind of. So ray tracing is ray tracing is a biased artifact that you can put into biased renders. Path tracing is unbiased.
Right.
And I can never remember whether or not the ray is shooting from the camera, bouncing around a scene and then hitting a light source, or if it starts at the light source, bounces around the scene and hits the camera. I think that one might be ray tracing.
I could be wrong. I think the primary rays come from the camera first.
See, that's what I
Really?
think.
And the secondary come from the lights. But someone's going to kill me in the comments with that. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure.
I thought ray tracing is like one ray, and path tracing is like multiple rays with more bounce.
Well, exactly. See, like I have literally read multiple articles on the distinction between ray tracing and path tracing, and I still am unable to articulate the difference.
Which just tells you how smart these people are who
Yes.
design these render engines. Because again, Jules was explaining like, oh, well, so, you know, we tweak progressive photon mapping and all these different things in these ways so that you can have caustics 1,000 times faster. And he's like, it's not quite this. It's a little bit more of that. And because, yeah, if you just have the most base level understanding of rendering, you're like, it's easy. You know, you shoot a ray out and it bounces around. But yeah, it's so...
He did have a pretty good explanation for why caustics are hard to render, though. So
Yeah.
like with he used this water bucket example. Essentially, if imagine like a bucket filling up with water is your rendering.
Mhm.
And for like a normal scene, you take like a hose and you're just filling it with water. If it's like a really complex scene, you got a lot of geometry, a lot of different complex textures, maybe like you're a little bit further away and you're having to like kind of put your thumb on the hose to kind of get more of the water to go further and into the bucket. Rendering caustics is like standing 10 feet away from the bucket and putting the nozzle into mist mode.
And trying to fill the,
Yeah.
my God.
And like, all right, now I'm going to be rendering by filling the bucket with water 10 feet away by shooting mist that direction.
And
That's a
11 years
great
later,
analogy.
you have your full bucket.
11 years later, you're
Wow.
like have drained LA of its water supply, but your
That's
bucket is full.
Yeah, and it's
Wow.
and it has to do with like for unbiased rendering to work, there's just an infinite number of rays to sample for the complexity of light being refracted, and so the likelihood, the chances of you finding the correct ray is so low. It's like brute forcing hacking a password.
Mm.
It's like imagine you need to hack someone's account and you're just guessing their password over and over again. That's like
Mm.
that's kind of how traditionally speaking rendering caustics is.
Hey everyone, as you can see, I've come to the fair and fertile lands of Minnesota to get some B-roll for my next video project. And well, on the way here, I was told that that's not necessary to do because courtesy of today's sponsor, Storyblocks, there's a place where you can have all of your stock asset needs met because they have a virtually unlimited library of high quality 4K B-roll images, audio assets, motion graphics, After Effects templates, and more. And coming out to a farm to get your own B-roll is actually not necessary at all. Between the car rental and the plane ticket, and of course the lodging while I'm up here, things are kind of expensive, probably more expensive than a unlimited all-access subscription to Storyblocks, which allows you to download as much as you want, whenever you want, and use it in anything royalty-free. Didn't think of that on my way up here. That not only would I have to visit a farm to get some B-roll for my video, but also I'd have to visit the Arctic tundra and a couple other places in Europe. If I had an unlimited all-access plan on Storyblocks, I wouldn't have to do any of this. So, yeah. So anyways, if you are interested in getting Storyblocks for yourself, click the link in the description below or head on over to storyblocks.com/CorridorCast. See what they got on there for yourself, and you don't have to travel out to someplace like this and just to get some shots of chickens. Yeah. Anyways, let's get back to the podcast.
Wow.
You just keep guessing the password until you eventually hit it. Now, how photon tracing, the new render kernel, is different, I don't know how to articulate it. Again, it's like, it's just 1,000 times faster while still being unbiased. It's like encouraged, but Jules said that like they're still not caching anything. They're still not doing anything that is technically biased. Like with a biased render engine, say like Mental Ray,
Mhm.
you can turn off global illumination. You can turn off soft shadows or shadows, period. You can turn off like all these different things, but in an unbiased render situation, it's all just physically simulated as if it's real. And you can't
Yeah.
just turn off global illumination or stuff like that.
Interesting.
Right now at a point where you can take that further and you can disable certain things to not show up, but those are like hacks on top of the unbiased rendering
so
to get it to be good in a workflow environment.
So
Sorry,
fake
studio
caustics.
environment. Yeah.
Fake caustics, those are biased results?
No,
Is that how they're
okay,
generated?
so fake caustics are essentially just using a gobo. And a gobo is essentially just a pattern that blocks light. So like a hand shadow puppet
Uh-huh.
is a gobo.
Yeah.
Or like taking some plants, like some ferns, and putting it in front of the light, and that you get that dappled lighting on someone.
Yeah.
That is a gobo. And a caustic is essentially, or a fake caustic is essentially the same thing. You substitute out the texture image of a fern and you put in caustics.
But it's doing that through an object. So
Yes.
like,
And so that is the way it's doing that is as if it's any other light source. Imagine like having a super big LED panel, but you have a black and white image of a caustic on that panel. Light is only going to come from the patterns of light, or light's only going to show up from where it's not being blocked by the. This is a bad description. It's so hard to describe.
No,
this,
it's
but
totally
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like the difference there between the real and the fake one, because you can get pretty, like if it's just the bottom of a pool, you can get a pretty consistent or interesting result from that. But like the actual light going through the ripples in the pool is light being bent.
Yes.
So like the fringes of that light will have different colors because it's like bending the spectrum of light and stuff like that. And that's if you just use a gobo, it's just a cutout. It's just like a shape, you know.
Yeah.
But the advantage is that by doing it fake like that, it's very cheap to render. So it's very quick to render. And so basically this video kind of starts out with me pointing out this shot from Prehistoric Planet, which all the VFX in that show are pretty excellent.
So good.
I gotta say.
It's so good.
One
Really
guy
good.
reached out to me who worked on the shot that I had shared on Twitter.
Oh, dude.
He was like, "Oh, we spent 2 years on that. Be nice about the ice episode." And I think it was like,
These are
nervous to
nice
look
things
good.
to say.
It's
It's
still good.
amazing. Yeah.
Oh, dude, no spoilers. I'm about to get to the ice.
Oh, are you?
episode
Oh, it's
tonight, yeah.
good.
nice.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, so I was like,
They all die.
so then I asked some follow-up questions. I was like, did you do this with like fake gobos? Like, how'd you do the stuff? And he was like, oh, hit me up on Discord. And I was like, well, that's the end of that conversation. I'm not gonna hit him up on Discord.
Oh, why is that?
I have a thing.
Oh, about Discord?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's my work thing. I don't want it to be my social media thing. So it's a bit of a thing. Yeah.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
I don't want to go into it. It's a weird thing.
That's fair.
Same reason why I have like 1,000 friend requests on Facebook.
What's Facebook?
When is the last time you went on Facebook? I've given up.
I stopped using
100%.
Facebook for about 2 years.
You're back.
I'm back.
Oh, he's
Oh,
back.
Only
interesting.
because I needed to join a couple one-wheel related Facebook forums.
Okay, I'm glad you said
Groups.
one wheel.
It's the only reason why I'm back. I don't want to talk about it too much publicly yet, but it has to do with one wheels that are not made by anyway.
Oh.
I don't want to go into that just yet. It's complicated politically.
The main point is you're back on Facebook, though.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Is it any
Complicated
different?
politically.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't check it. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. So now I've actually fallen behind following up on this one wheel project because I don't have notifications on Facebook turned on,
Yeah.
and so it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's just like my object permanence is just like it's not there. It doesn't exist.
That's fair
And
enough.
that was why I stopped using Facebook. I turned off notifications,
And it stopped
And-
existing.
and before I knew it, enough time had gone by. My phone auto uninstalled Facebook.
Nice.
That's a cool feature.
Apple's
Yeah.
like, you don't need to be using this
Like,
anymore.
oh, you haven't
We
touched
got
this
you.
in 90 days. We're gonna offload that storage for other things.
That's
like,
good.
Isn't it crazy that Facebook is just, I mean, I still tons and tons of people use it, but I would say it's kind of fallen out of kind of mainstream use
Oh,
in a lot of ways.
absolutely.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's like
Well,
we're
I-
all like, "Whoa, it's like like MySpace," and now like it's happened.
And
you
I
know?
think it's the really interesting thing about all these like proceedings about the power of these social media platforms is like, hey guys, just wait 5 years. There's gonna be a whole new company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I guess the weird thing is that Instagram is also Facebook. Like or I guess it's all Meta now.
Yeah, but you like Instagram. Like who knows? Maybe in 5 years the kids will be using
TikTok.
Beam or whatever the next
I
one
mean,
is.
Beam.
Beam.
You
Wow.
heard it here first. Download Beam at the iOS store.
I think that's a real one. I feel like I'm
Let me
pulling
know
that.
what time traveling device you used for that too.
Yeah, I mean,
Beam's dead. It went out of business years ago.
it's so weird because it is like is TikTok the most popular social media platform now?
I don't know about the most. Like, how do you measure most popular?
Most
Number of new users per month.
engagement,
Most
I guess.
total users. Yeah, engagement. Like, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
TikTok has blown up, obviously. I actually kind of like TikTok quite a bit.
It's very addicting.
It's extremely addicting, and I have found that the content on TikTok actually is pretty wholesome. Typically, like
Mhm.
I don't know, TikTok has this reputation.
Isn't it based
for being,
on your like algorithm though? So that just means you're a nice, wholesome person.
But like, I mean, sure, but I keep seeing so many different posts of like it's just some random person talking about a story or talking about a thing, and they're just doing all of the video editing inside of TikTok,
That's
and
pretty
and
cool.
they're it has lowered the barrier to entry.
More democratic.
Yeah, it's so easy to create content now and just put it out there that we're seeing a huge number of people just starting to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it started with YouTube being you can now upload your own thing, but like you still had to do everything yourself
Yeah.
offline and then like
Yeah.
deliver a file. That's all it was a video
It's
file
like-
sharing.
Yeah.
It's like-
It's like, what is going to be the next YouTube? Will there ever be another YouTube?
Yeah,
Is
that's
it
one that
TikTok?
doesn't-
Like YouTube feels like it's still like ever present. Like,
Yeah.
I think it has to be like TikTok is a different medium
Yeah.
entirely. And like nothing can ever replace YouTube's place in the market as
Yeah.
like
Well,
long form.
maybe
I mean, that's the
Beam
thing
video.
though, is like you just said nothing. And it's like, I'm sure people said that about MySpace. I'm sure people said that about
but
Facebook.
I think like Facebook did something different than MySpace, and
Yeah.
it just kind of consumed, I guess, that realm of people's attention. And like TikTok still like takes attention away from YouTube for young people.
Yeah.
I don't
I
trust
just-
TikTok.
I don't either.
shouldn't.
There are positive sides of it. There's great content on there, like any platform, but there's something very nefarious about the interface. It is as close to a slot machine as I've ever seen
True.
Yep.
any app. It's like there's no like sub feed really.
There
It's-
is.
But they drop you right in on like it's like if you open YouTube, well, there's the recommended.
There's not like a chronological sub feed.
but yeah,
like
it's
your
just
sub feed, but they'll throw stuff that was like 2 months ago. They're like, oh, you haven't seen this yet. We think you'll like it because it's entirely algorithmic.
Yeah.
I wonder, I mean, this is a total floating theory that I have with no evidence to back it up, but I feel like everyone that I know has had one video that popped off that got them to like really want to keep making stuff. And I almost feel
Oh,
like
I know
they give
what
you
theory.
one.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I feel
I know
like
what
they give
theory.
you one. They're like, there you go. Oh, yeah, a little taste of it.
I think there's
Now keep going.
Yeah.
a degree of that,
Yeah.
but at the same time, your video has to be good. Your video still has to like land on other people's pages, and they have to pay attention enough to go through it, and that tells TikTok like, oh, people are interested in this.
well, it's good or it has to be attention grabbing.
That's, I mean, okay,
You
that
know,
you're right.
which
Those
is
are not mutually exclusive.
slightly different things, and I think it's again like it's hijacking our like. You know, when you're scrolling through Reddit or something, there's just this thing of like, oh, I'm getting new information constantly, but it's like you're
Yeah.
reading, right? But TikTok, it's like just shooting it straight into your brain every 12 seconds or whatever the,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yeah.
basic.
And next thing you know, 3 hours have gone by, and you haven't moved an inch, and you're like, I
It's
am
scary.
wasting my life.
Yeah.
That's
It's
why
such a
I
scary
can't download TikTok. I already feel like I do that with Reddit, but I can justify it by being like, well, I'm sort
reading.
of learning some stuff.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, like I've had to go to a point where I was like, okay, I have to like only subscribe to subreddits that I actually will be like, learning from, or it's like, you know, reading the newspaper. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm like my Reddit is like hockey and VFX.
Yeah.
And climate. Like that, it's like so lame, but it's
Yeah.
like I can't be like looking at memes or like r/funny because then I'll just be doing that for 4
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, for a moment there, I thought you just mispronounced Hawkeye.
Hawkeye. Oh my gosh.
She's a huge Hawkeye fan.
Well, because you worked on Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And so for a moment, just for a split second, I was like, oh, you follow Hawkeye and VFX on
he's
Reddit, but
my
why are you
favorite
saying
superhero.
hockey?
He actually-
Like, that's a
passionate
weird
about
way to
it.
pronounce
He's
Hawkeye.
my favorite superhero.
He actually,
Hockey.
he actually has Jeremy Renner's app.
Dude, it's
That's still wild that exists. That's what's
Yeah,
going to
man.
take over TikTok.
Yeah,
the Jeremy
dude.
Renner app.
Yeah, everybody's gonna be on Jeremy Renner's app.
dude.
I did not know he had an app.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a whole thing. He seems like a really cool guy. Like I heard
Seems
him
like
on
it, yeah.
Dak Shepard's podcast, and he seems really cool. But it seems like his marketing people were like, "Hey, man, you need an app for all like the middle-aged moms who like
Yeah,
really
all the
are
fans of
attracted to you."
hockey.
Man, there was definitely a period of time there several years ago where I would get a lot of emails from people being like, hey, we want to build you an app.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What
like,
are they going to do with it?
It was like a place where you can put your videos up and have like forums and like engage with your community, and like people could download the app. Clinton did it.
Oh,
He had one. He doesn't use it anymore. Like I never ended up doing anything. Like I never even pursued it. I don't think I ever even responded to one of those emails, but it's like I would get them, and I know other people would get them too. And
I've got an idea.
that went away.
Why don't we scan you, right? And then you can take a tour of Wren, and you can just look
Oh.
around. There you go. If that
Are
was
there
on the Jeremy
tiers?
Renner app, I'm telling you, there's
Are there payment tiers?
I don't even know.
An
wanna know
article
what's
of
involved
clothing
with
for
that.
each tier.
The only
the-
Wren's app.
I'm telling you, if that was
Oh
on the
my
Jeremy
God.
Renner app, if you could take a tour of Jeremy Renner, that would be one of the hottest features on that app.
Man, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's a hard
So,
no from you.
I
Copy
also
that.
brought this thing in here today. This
Oh
is
my
the
God.
Insta360 1RS. And this is their brand new flagship model because it has their 1-inch sensor on it, dual 1-inch sensors. And it's really nice. So to be clear, this is like the new part here. It's just the lens essentially. Their whole the 1RS, it's a modular system. And the 1RS that was launched earlier this year is waterproof. But this specific mod is not waterproof.
How did
Well,
you?
why would that matter,
yeah.
Wren?
That
Why
would
that
matter if you want to go swimming with it in the ocean, say this morning, and
You tell we get our shot, and then you tell Dean, "Oh, I'm just gonna run in the water with my 360 camera, just get a shot real quick."
Mhm.
And so we have all this footage of Wren running around in the water with his 360 camera on this pole, like just diving in,
Just
getting
baptizing
hit
it
by
constantly.
waves, just dunking it in the water. And then today he's like, "Oh wait, it's not like all the files are corrupted. Oh wait, it's not waterproof."
yeah, no, the camera's straight up dead. It's straight up dead.
Wow.
Like I see water inside this little like screen thing here.
Rip.
Yeah,
Day
because
one.
like it's water resistant and it has all of this waterproofing stuff on it. It was obviously my mistake.
Dude, you just take your Nintendo
but, like,
Switch
I
out in the
feel like
water,
it's
and you're
just-
just like,
I do think in the like, come on, man, it's an action camera. It should be waterproof. Like,
I
But it
don't-
is. You
I
said
can see
one of
why
the
you-
models are.
yeah.
But
Well, that's
not
the thing.
this one.
It's like look at how
That's
much
almost worse though. It's like you can't just be like the earlier model's waterproof and then a later release isn't. Like,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
like if GoPro, the new GoPro, they're like, it's not waterproof.
Guess what? Surprise.
Surprise. We're
Yeah,
not
so
telling
I
anyone
texted
that.
the guy who like runs the marketing for Insta360, friend of mine. I like him a lot, and you know he's our contact with the company. And I told him that I killed it, and he's by getting it submerged in water. He was like, I didn't know it wasn't waterproof, and he says, yeah, it says that in the fine print that no one reads.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's where it would be.
Well, and
And so, but like I was like, I thought this was waterproof, so I looked it up because it was literally announced today. This is the first time this has been announced, and so like I can now publicly research this. The information's out there, and yeah, it technically at the bottom of the page it says it's IP something. It's water resistant, but do not submerge it and don't do any sort of intense water activities like surfing. And that's essentially what I was doing.
There's literally, we have a shot of you body surfing.
On day one of the release. That's so great.
Yeah, I'm bummed because this is actually like a super sick camera. I shot a bunch over the weekend, one wheeling up on the mountains with it, and it's hard to describe how big the glass is on this. It's a Leica lens. I was about to say Zeiss. Definitely not Zeiss. Leica. It's like bigger than my eye socket.
Yeah. It's kind of freaky to think about.
Mhm.
And yeah, so
Yeah,
And this does brackets, no?
This guy I follow on Instagram just posted his, like, I guess now that you're allowed to post them, and it was super cool. He did like a mountain biking video in Nelson, BC. I think his Instagram name is like John Simo, but it's so crazy. He had like the bike rider like holding it on like a pole on his handlebars, so you're like getting this crazy like biking
nice.
footage.
Yeah,
That's
that's
so cool.
dude.
Like,
Yeah, what is the difference between this and the last model?
It's the same as the last model. So the only thing that's actually new
It's
is,
not waterproof?
the glass.
Okay.
This sensor here is the new thing. So it's a much bigger sensor, so it's much better in low light. Less noisy footage when it's dark.
Interesting.
And you know, just like anytime you get bigger glass, you're going to get better optics, or sorry, the image quality will be better typically the bigger your glass is.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the idea around this mod. Now the rest of this stuff, this module was announced at the beginning of the year. This is the 1RS, and it's just like the brain, and then you can attach little battery modules to it, and that's what this little thing is here behind it. And it's in this specific case that attaches to the lens. So this lens
cool.
only works with this casing configuration.
Yeah, it's super modular. Looks
Yeah,
like it.
and I love the modularity of it. They have versions that have like little regular action cam lenses, like a GoPro lens. They have a big GoPro lens. They have regular 360 lenses. And we did a video a couple years ago where they have a split lens that you can attach to it with like a little ribbon cable. And I attached those to a drone on the top and bottom, which basically makes it so that the drone was invisible.
Oh, cool.
So it was like a God
yeah,
mode
that's
camera
cool.
type deal. So I can
So
fly the
cool.
drone around and get any shot I want because there's nothing in the way.
It's just a floating eye.
Yeah, and
That's very
and
cool.
I thought that was a super compelling idea, and made a whole video where I like literally 3D printed and designed my own like mounting stuff for it, and I scratched multiple lenses because I kept hitting the ground. The
Yeah.
lens is like the most exposed thing, and it has to be the most outer thing for anything inside of it to be invisible. So yeah,
Dang.
that was a weird thing. And they just also announced a new version of their own official God mode type camera thing. They called it the something.
Oh, I love
Something-
that.
Wow.
oh, dude,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a great
creative name.
honestly.
Great name.
The Sphere, that's what
Yeah.
it is. It's the Insta360 Sphere. And it works with the DJI Mavic Air 2.
The reason I strayed away from Insta360 was because I wasn't having any luck getting separate bracketed photographs in my HDRIs.
Yeah.
Which, everything would be compressed into a single JPEG. That was like, it was, the range was in there, but it was 8-bit. So it's like, I'm not getting the full depth of the beauty.
This has been a point of contention between me and Insta360 because like they promised me that this ability would be a thing several years ago. And I talked about it in a video and it still hasn't quite become a feature. Technically it is there. You have to like do some specific things. You have to like save out the DNG raw files in the brackets, and it'll actually save out the multiple different images in a raw setting. So you can just open up your folder, drag and drop those into Photoshop and create your .hdr file out of it.
Huh, okay.
And
it just feels like something that should just be a like.
Well, that's the thing. Their market is like the action camera market, the mass market. They're not really tailoring their stuff towards VFX artists. But I have a feeling if they did, they would suddenly have a whole market of people being like, oh yeah, I need this for my renders.
Yeah.
But right now, it's not quite at that easy enough to use stage yet.
Right.
And yeah, so it's like.
That's why I went with the Theta Z. That's what I have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you can basically set up your exposure settings for every single bracket. And then it'll take them like inside of 1 minute. So when I was on set, I just pop it. I just clear set for just literally a minute and get my full range and then be able to make the HDRIs however I wanted.
So to be clear, this does that.
Yeah, it does. But you have access to like, cause I guess I can make
9 brackets and it'll save 9 different images at 9 different exposures.
Yeah.
Going from super dark to super bright.
Mm-hmm.
And all you do is you press one button and it'll start taking those photos. And it'll do it pretty quickly, like in a couple seconds.
I'm wondering if the model I had was the one before that was a function. It still gave me a nice range in the HDRI. It took multiple exposures, but it put them all together. And I never found a way to. Maybe it just wasn't intuitive.
Oh, so you were just taking like an
actually kick out
HDR.
a full like 32-bit EXR file or something, or
well,
what kind of file was it?
I would from Theta Z.
Yeah.
No, I just get traditional images. I can't remember what the file extension was for those, but I would then run them into Photoshop.
Okay, that's okay.
The .hdr. But with this, I never found a way to get the bracketed photographs, and that might have been the version that I had. But I'd always only get a JPEG that was the full range put together with like the lows and the highs kind of pushed towards each other. So I had
that's
with
the
the
problem
range.
with the term HDR. It's become one of those ubiquitous terms that applies to a lot of different things. So it's hard because HDR just means high dynamic range. And so if you have an image with HDR, it just means you're able to see the details in the shadows and the details in the highlights.
So it's true.
A greater dynamic range. And there's ways to sort of like take multiple exposures and merge that into one image that you can share online and whatnot.
But the 8-bit banding was just woof.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's
rough.
an 8-bit or if it's a JPEG at all, you're not going to be able to use that for VFX. I mean, you'll be able to use it as like a reflection type thing. But when we talk in HDRI, it's HDR image. And that's the idea of like an actual high bit depth.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can turn down the exposure on a picture like you do the exposure on a camera.
Yeah.
You can if you point your camera at a light bulb, it's just going to be a big white spot. But if you specifically start cranking the shutter speed to the point that like it starts getting darker and darker, you can actually see the outline of like the curlicues of a light bulb.
It's very fun.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Imagine doing that on an image that has already been taken.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole idea of an HDRI. It has all of the light information baked in. And that is very, very nice when it comes to 3D rendering, because now you can just plop that in a scene and now you're getting all kinds of light directionality, light intensity, light color, all just baked into a single image, and like it works really well, quickly.
Really well.
I saw Peter one time did where he projected the HDRI onto geometry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he like rebuilt the environment.
Yeah,
That was
like
pretty
projection mapping HDRI. It was very cool.
Yeah, and so then you actually have your 3D geometry with emissive textures, and also but that texture has the correct light intensity baked in, so anything that's not supposed to be bright isn't going to be emitting that much light. And you can take that further if you're doing like, I know Ian Hubert's method to like take a photo scan in a certain spot and then take an HDRI in that same spot and basically invert that and light the photo scan with that, and it removes all the shadows.
I really got to ask him about that.
I'm not exactly sure how it works.
I really
I
got to
understand
Just
it
like
in,
completely
in
flattens it.
principle, I think I get it.
Like you're multiplying the inverse, so it's lifting the dark values and keeping. It's not multiplying against the light values, so you're getting a lift just in the dark. But I'd love to pick his brain on that.
Yeah,
if I ever get to meet him.
And I swear, every time I talk with Michael, I'm telling him like, we got to get this like bracketed exposure thing working. He's like, it's there. It should work. I'm like, okay, show me. And he'll show me. I'm like, well, goddamn. Yep, there it is.
Wow.
I can do it. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
It's just hidden just enough that I can never remember how to return it on or do it again. And you still have to take the SD card out of the camera, plug it in, go to the folder and take the stuff out. And so I was like, that's enough though. If you can make it easier to do, but what would be nicer is if you can automatically turn that into a .exr or a .hdr file
that would be
with
the
it
best.
already merged together, and all I have to do is just take that one file and I can drag and drop. Because then what I really want to do is I want to make an HDRI sequence going down a road. And then you can have like, say, a Chrome Dragon or something just static with the HDRI playing around it, but it'll look like it's flying down a road.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's too impractical to do right now because you have to take a whole bunch of images and you have to process it all out for one frame and now do that 30 times a second.
That, or you just deal with the 8-bit video.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that would, yeah.
You could do that.
I've done that
but
too.
Yeah.
I've done that where you just take a 360 video, you put it in your HDRI environment. You don't get the lighting information, but you get the reflections.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, Caustics for real versus a gobo.
Oh,
Actually, no. Caustics
well-
for real versus gobos, fake caustic gobos work way better than that.
Yeah. But just in terms of like the whole idea of VFX is like, what's good enough? Like, it's like, if you can't tell, doesn't matter kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Uh,
It's all a lie anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all a lie.
It's
and
like-
that's kind of the final point we make in this Caustics video is that like I go through all of this effort in this journey to try to get real caustics, all of this stuff. And at the end, I'm like, wow, it looks just the same as the gobo.
Yeah.
What's the point? And then kind of conclude with the thought that like all visual effects are faking it to such a high degree that like, you can't compare anything to reality.
Yeah.
As long as you can get
It's
away with a
unfair.
lie.
Yeah.
And
Like,
as long
I'm-
as it looks real and works, like usually something, we're at a point now where like the small little things that make stuff a little bit more realistic matters to make it look better. But at the end of the day,
Like we were talking about Aces CG, right?
mhm.
Aces CG versus Aces CC,
Yeah.
you know?
It's the
And
nickname
it's
for
like
it.
the discrepancy is going to be so
It's
minimal
not
to
CC,
where
it was like a number. It was like a 4-digit
Aces
number and like an X or a C in there or something. But yeah, like
That one.
and again, I can't even speak to the specifics of why I said this, but apparently Aces CG doesn't handle color as correctly as normal Aces.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know too much about that
and
either.
so I was like, okay, then we probably shouldn't go that route. We should probably use the more correct version. And then I was like, it all looks good.
yeah, like once you're in the Aces
It all looks
workspace
good
anyway, it's so
anyway.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like how much can you get away with in that department? And
Yeah, it's such a thing because like with VFX, there's such an idea of like, oh, it has to be perfect, but often something that will be perfect and like the correct way won't actually look as good and won't be like what the human eye is used to seeing, especially on screen, because you're used to like, there's like real versus cinematic, and often someone viewing that is going to be like, well, I like the cinematic one better, and it's like, it kind of boils down to it's like, does it look good?
Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
Well, that's
Like,
that's the art in it, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like I've seen
Does
some
it look-
sunsets.
yeah.
I've seen some sunsets that look so fake. I'm like, if I did that as my work, I wouldn't be done yet. I'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. How is this
right?
possible?
Another great example is muzzle flashes. Like real
Mhm.
muzzle flashes, sometimes you can't even see them.
Mhm.
Like sometimes they're just not there. Your camera doesn't like, or just tiny little thing. And like, but if you saw that on screen, you'd be like, oh, it's kind of lame. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the biggest example of that is outer space.
Yeah.
Photos taken in space, they never look real. They always look so harsh and contrasty and like
Yeah.
not good. You're like, this
Because
doesn't look
one
real. And so,
big
but
old
then
light
every
source.
movie or TV show, space looks awesome.
Yeah.
And it's very unrealistic.
Yeah.
Way more
But it
fun.
feels real. And that's the point.
Yeah.
It's like, as long as like whoever's watching it believes what they're watching
Yeah.
is real, that's the only thing that matters. So like this is something Nico and I have talked about on VFX Arts React, or at some point in the past. I don't know, man. Making videos for so long now. Hollywood reality. Sorry, there's like realistic and Hollywood realistic. And
Yeah.
that's similar to the same sort of thing that you were talking about there, is that like, explosions are never how they are depicted in movies.
Yeah.
And yet we kind of believe that that's how explosions work because that's what we've seen in movies. And so when we actually see how explosions work for real, we don't buy it.
Yeah, it's underwhelming. Well, Dean, you were talking about the level of blood in a human body.
Yeah, well,
the other
that was. Remember, Seth Rogen was talking about it was the opening of Preacher he was talking about, but the same thing. If anybody's watching The Boys, is like the amount of blood that are in people is insane, and it's also directly correlated with like how hard somebody's getting killed. Is like if you're getting killed super hard, you got way more blood suddenly.
I shot him super hard.
Yeah, right?
Like you get punched by like Homelander, you explode into a bunch of pieces. But if someone stabs you, it's like, ugh.
Yeah. Like there's a chemical thing that's going on that generates more blood from the impact than it just.
Yeah, no, I'm remembering what he said now because it was like on Preacher on that opening scene, this dude explodes and sprays the entire crowd in this chapel with blood, and they kept having to bring in more and more blood. And at a point, they're like, this is more blood than the human body has. And his response was like, who cares? We need more blood. It's not impactful enough. We need more blood in the shot. It doesn't matter the technicalities of all this stuff. And
yeah.
I think there's something interesting there of like, as the tools get more democratic for VFX and it's like easier and easier to make things look physically based, realistic, it just brings more and more into focus how important the artistic interpretive element is. Because like you're saying, with the conclusion of this video is kind of like, you will never replicate reality. It's literally impossible because a computer can't make an infinite, like reality is just, it is, you know?
Yeah.
And like that's like the artistic side of it, the handcrafted side of it is almost becoming more relevant to people, like a lot of movies that are taking a more like incorporating more practical effects. I think people respond to that not because it's like it looks better in some vague kind of way, but because it has the touch of like a human being rather than a computer, you know.
Dean, this might be super relevant to you, but the Star Wars sequel trilogy, are there specific shots from the movies that stand out to you in those? Like, that's just what popped in my head.
As beautiful or as like janky?
As beautiful. As like, just like for me, I think it's in Force Awakens. They do like the Apocalypse Now TIE Fighter shot, you know, where it's like them
with the sun. Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense because it's like afternoon sun in that shot.
Yeah.
But it looks so sick. So who cares?
That's a Todd Vaziri shot right there.
Right? It's so...
Or he comped it at least.
So sick. And then there's like the Last Jedi, the freaking hyperspace like one. And and
that's totally interpretive. That's like a shot from an anime film.
And everyone loves it.
Yeah, everybody
like
gets up and claps.
I mean,
and like
say what you will about the new Star Wars sequels. I thought they were beautiful at the very least.
Yeah, totally. But that's the thing. It's like those shots, they don't really make sense, but they look amazing.
Yeah.
So
it's the meaning. It's like, what does it mean to the story? And like, you know, not to bring up freaking RRR again, this amazing Indian film that we're all raving about. But that movie has every moment essentially is just completely interpretive. It's like so distant from reality. But like there's a shot where they're like, light that man up, you know, and they pan over the lights like as if they're gonna pan them on him, like from your perspective, and then suddenly he's being backlit with like
these sweet volume rays behind him. It's just like total hero pose, and you're like, awesome.
I love it. But it's so the image is more important from an artistic perspective always than it is from like a, well, did it, you know, is it real?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like using the tools to make it as real as possible, or rather it just assists whoever's creating the thing to be what they want it to be.
Yeah.
You know, especially if what they're trying to make is supposed to be realistic.
Yeah.
Like everything in Avatar 2, they're essentially doing it all as physically accurate as possible.
It's working. It looks so good.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
And so like a big question of mine, and in fact, this is actually still a bit of a question mark in this video we're doing. Probably not by the time you guys are seeing this because it's out, hopefully, is whether or not they are physically simulating those caustics in Avatar 2. Because you can see caustics a few different moments in the trailer. And there's one in particular that blew my mind from the Avatar 2 trailer where I don't know who it is. They're holding onto a whale as the camera's like kind of flipping upside down. And he's like soaring along underneath the surface of the water. But you see all of the caustics on the whale and on him. But you're also seeing the surface of the water in the same shot. And so that is something that you can fake by basically having like a gobo, fake caustics being projected in, and the actual sort of water surface itself isn't emitting those caustics. But I wouldn't put it past Weta to actually simulate that for real and just like, oh yeah, we just have a unified system. We don't ever have to like tweak anything to make it work. We never have to hack anything together, which is what we're always doing as effects artists. It's like, this is almost there. You know what? I'm gonna like make it work here, make it work there, cobble it together. Now it looks amazing.
Yeah. All the stitches on the back of it are hidden from the camera.
Exactly.
Monstrosity.
So I think their entire goal and purpose is to like try to make a unified system that requires less of that, so that they can have more quicker turnaround times on iterations and stuff like that. And I just presuming rendering's not a problem for them. But at the same time, caustics.
How long has it been since Avatar 1?
Like
2009.
13 years?
13 years.
Yeah, it takes 11 years to render caustics.
Well, maybe they started the caustic renders when that came out.
Wake up,
coincidence?
people.
I think not.
But yeah, so like we have a contact at Weta, and we asked them two questions: what their rendering engine is, which you actually already know. You said it was
Manuka.
Manuka.
I'm allowed to say that.
I have no idea how well that renders caustics, but secondly, I was just like, did they fake the caustics or did they simulate them for real? And we have not heard back yet. And so very likely in this video, it'll just have to be speculation.
To this day, like that, if I could just turn invisible, one of the first things I'd do is just go eavesdrop on all like the big post houses just to see their internal structures and what they have access to and the tools they have built. Like, I bet there's so much amazing stuff that just on our end, we just can't even fathom what's possible. So yeah, caustics wise, the fact that we have, an Octane, that new kernel, it just must mean that in those places, those top secret environments, they must have just fantastic solutions to these problems.
Well, perhaps, but I don't think caustics is the thing anyone else has actually solved. I'm pretty sure Otoy is the only company that has solved spectrally correct caustics.
James Cameron, what say you?
He just personally invented the way to do it.
Yeah. It wasn't Weta. They just like, they're just using his name.
Yeah.
I mean, just the idea of having a like farm of computers, like we're here, like we have a bunch of 3090s in the studio. Like we can get out renders much faster than I could at home on my like janky computer. But like there, some of the stuff we kick out, you could kick out in like seconds at one of these places. Just like shoot it out to the farm. You know?
Could do that here.
Yeah, we could. And we could get that all set up. Yeah.
But it'd be 10 computers versus like hundreds, you know?
Well, yeah, because they have it on full on like server racks where it's like a computer is literally just like a little wafer in a tray.
Yeah, we literally used baking racks at one of our studios.
Really?
Yeah, like you know the classic like slide of like baking sheet in. We used one of those at one point.
So I think honestly the future of rendering, not to like put too much emphasis on cryptocurrency or anything, but Otoy has this thing called render token, and if you know how crypto works and how it's like a distributed network of a bunch of different computers and GPUs all just kind of like working on a problem, Otoy was like, well, instead of just like trying to figure out whether or not someone actually made a purchase, what if they're rendering an engine? What if that computer is just rendering an image? And so when you actually submit something to the render network, you pay for it using the render tokens. It's like it's still a kind of a crypto thing, but your image then gets uploaded, encrypted, and distributed to 1 million different GPUs.
Wow.
And then you get your image back. You just download it. There's no like sort of render farm it goes to. It's all just distributed.
Wow, interesting.
And it's very fast. They're saying it's actually significantly faster than going to like a render farm. And Clint did a render recently that he said would have taken him 100 hours to render, but he was able to get it back in like minutes.
We're using this method?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was either minutes or maybe hours or in a day, I forget. But it was like enough that over the weekend I was like, man, I gotta finally get into this. I've been knowing about this thing for literally 3 years now.
Have you ever done an online render farm?
I never have. No.
It is the most exciting thing in the world. You package up your scene, you send it off, and you're literally watching in real time as it's getting completed. And if you're like me, I only go to it when I really need it. So that means I've tested without it. and it's incomparable. But the one that I used, I can't even remember what it was now. It's been a couple years. That keeps a ticker of how much it costs too. So as a freelancer, it was out of pocket for me, out of like the sum that I was charging, and just watching the money leave my wallet was the counter side to this speed that was just blazing.
Yep.
It's a very cool experience though.
That's definitely always going to be the sort of like flip side of that. And I don't really know what the cost comparisons are off the top of my head right now, but I mean, it's like, can you imagine being like, you know what? I want to do a render in a few weeks that's going to be pretty nuts. So I'm just going to let my computer, just render for someone else for the next couple weeks, make enough sort of render tokens that you can then spend on your next render.
I didn't even register. Yeah, you can give yours up to generate tokens.
Because everyone
like
who puts their computer up on the network is earning that sort of like that same thing that you do if you're mining freaking like Ethereum or Bitcoin.
Dude, all
or
those
whatever.
crypto people who sold their GPUs after the crypto crash are like trying to buy them back up now.
It's kind of like communism though. You know what I mean? We're all just helping each other.
Our renders. It's not your render. It's ours.
It's our render. Yeah, that's cool
render.
though. That's a really great idea. I might start doing that. That sounds pretty awesome.
I've literally been wanting to get into it for a long time, and I've just
so it's already out there.
Oh yeah, no, it's been around for a little while, but it's still kind of convoluted. Not only do you have to be good at understanding how to package up your render within all of the stuff that you would need for OTOY and like an Orbix file and all of like this stuff, and that's already a learning curve on its own. You also kind of have to understand how crypto works and how you have to get like the wallets and like all of the and get it uploaded, and it's a bit of a thing. I think Clint might actually make a tutorial for it because he had to like bang his head against the wall a lot and needed a lot of help to get just his one thing going. And now he knows it. And him and I were supposed to kind of like chat about this today, but I did not have time. And he was texting me and he was like, yeah, I think I might just go ahead and make a tutorial. I was like, please do.
That'd be super fun. I know it's super niche, Clint, but that would be very awesome. If you do that, then thank you. Yeah, that's very cool.
So before we wrap this up, I want to point out this little toy here in case you noticed it in my hand. It's essentially two little rolling pins. It's two cylinders of metal with ball bearings at the end, like little rolling bearings. So it's like a little bit of a fidget toy. It's kind of like a fidget spinner, and it just rolls around in your hand. You can kind of just like do this with it. It's a nice little stress reliever and just kind of have something to do with my hands. I've never really been into fidget toys or anything, but Mark, the podcast I was on with Mark a few weeks back, he had a little pink one. And he was playing around with it. I thought it was like a vape or something like that at first. I was like, what are you playing with? That? So whatever.
And that's Markiplier.
Yeah, Markiplier. Yeah, our intern.
Last name Plier.
Yeah, Mark. That's Plier. Markiplier.
And what's it called? What is this thing
called? So this is called an Ono. O-N-O. It's like $35 on Amazon. This is the stainless steel version. That's like $60. But it's a lot heavier. It has like that heft.
Oh, it's hefty.
Yeah, it's hefty.
My gosh.
It's very satisfying.
It's a true heifer.
And
look at that.
I find myself just like playing with it absentmindedly.
Oh,
it's really nice.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's actually really nice.
I think it was like literally after that podcast, it's like, hey, check this out. And I was like, I'm getting one right now. And I literally I opened my phone and bought one right then and there.
That's awesome.
I honestly might do the same thing now that I've used yours. This is heavier than Mark, last name Applier.
Yeah, it's like 3 times heavier.
Wow, dude, I like it, dude.
Let me hit that.
The only problem is that here, okay, I'll pretend, I'll mime it. I was hanging out with Jan the other night, and we were sitting at a table getting dinner, and I had it in my hand, and I was but under the table and between my legs, so I was just like, And I realized what I was doing. I was like, okay, now I have to make a point to always have it off to my side when I'm playing with it or something.
That would be the worst if you're doing that and then you make eye contact with someone, realize, and then instinctively say, I'm not doing what you think I'm doing. And then you just look very guilty.
That was exactly what happened.
Oh, unfortunate.
No. Yeah.
Well,
I was like, I'm just non-verbally. I was like, and I'm going to put it on the table. And I saw him look down on it, and we can neither of us acknowledged it.
Dude, now we got to do a podcast where we're all holding it, just staring at each other while we do it.
All of us are going to have the same callus on our palm from just doing it all day long.
Because this is I feel the ultimate spiritual successor to the fidget spinner. Because fidget spinners kind of did it for me. It was like you'd spin it and you're like, yeah. But it still required active input. You had to actually spin it.
Or some weird little thing with your hand there.
Yeah.
This is you could just all day.
Yeah, it's just you just sit in your hand. As opposed to say a stress ball. It's not really for stress. It's somewhere between stress and fidgeting.
It's very cool. Oh no.
Yeah. I've never really been a fidgeter. I've never really fidgeted much. I don't tap my shoe or play with like a fidget cube.
But your brain fidgets.
My
All
brain,
of our brain
it-
fidgets,
yeah.
and we need to give it something to focus on.
Yeah. So this has proven to be pretty helpful.
Dope.
Do we want to shout out the fans if they have any ideas similar to the Spice Cast?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
throw them out there.
Was
leave them
that
in
was
the
that a
comments.
fan idea? The Spice Cast?
It was actually Jonah and I came up with that one because we
Hate yourself.
hate ourselves.
Yeah.
And, but the Spice Cast was very fun to be a part of and
Yeah.
very painful, especially the next day.
Dude, I mean, I did freaking. We did the Hot Ones challenge for Christian's birthday party like a few
Did
years
you?
back, and
Yeah.
that was it's like cool. Never again,
Yep.
unless
Yeah.
it's actually on the Hot Ones show. That's the only other time I'll do it.
Dude,
Yeah.
Ice bucket podcast.
Yeah.
Everybody's in an ice bath. You see how long you
Oh
can
my
go.
gosh.
Yeah.
I don't even think I could get in.
No thanks.
Ice
I'm
bath,
good.
elk meat, DMT.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd be
And
down
with
to do
that-
one of those.
Well,
All right.
I mean, yeah.
DMT.
I'm gonna get back to it. I got a lot
Yeah.
of renders to kick out tonight. I'm probably gonna be here late. Hopefully no all-nighters this week.
Heck yeah.
But
Sweet.
I'm really excited to see
Running
the
out of
Caustic video. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
I'm
fun.
excited to learn something.
me too. Or rather, I'm excited to watch it.
When you commit to the response too quick.
Yeah, pretty much. Thanks
All
for
right.
watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. For those of you not watching, and we will listen to you in the next one.
Listen to you.
us in the next
That's
one.
an idea. We'll
Have a
listen
nice
to you.
day.
And
You
3,
too.
2, 1.